Well, if you're listening to us this morning, hopefully you have a pot of coffee handy because the Preds won well after midnight in a very late contest over the Seattle Kraken. We got our one words to describe the game, what we liked, what we didn't like from the game, plus Western Conference Wednesday. We're going to help you keep track on some of the Preds' potential playoff rivals with teams on the rise, teams slipping, and a couple of teams you should watch out for. All coming up today on Locked On Predators.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime who, once again, would like to remind Predators players that our friends at Built Bar do not have a pipeline of delicious tasting protein bars hidden somewhere in the penalty box.
There are no snacks in the sin bin, my friends. I am Ann Kimmel. I did not bake cookies and put them there, and I'm a writer at ontheforecheck.com.
It is a reminder we feel like we need to keep giving because yet again, Preds kind of sloppy when it came to penalties last night against the Seattle Kraken. The good news, of course, Predators won. 4-2 final score over the Seattle Kraken. Back and forth game. It was 2-1 Seattle at one point. Predators rattled off 3 straight goals, a couple of iffy ones if you're Philip Grubauer. And let's start this off, as we do always, our one word to describe the game.
Yeah, so my one word is, of course, not just one word because that's not technically what we do. But I flashed back to college where my college girlfriends and I would often quote what we called the gospel according to Garth Brooks. And my one word to describe this game is one of his songs called Mr. Right Now, where this game was not a game that's going to win you a playoff game, but it was okay for Seattle, and we got 2 points. So while it was not Mr. Right, it was Mr. Right Now, and passed the time, got us 2 points, and so we'll accept this game as Mr. Right Now.
I like the deep cut Garth Brooks reference right there.
Oh, I know them all. Like if there was a Garth Brooks trivia, like I would nail that. Yeah.
Summer is coming and we're going to need content. So hang on to that one.
The Garth Brooks Nashville Predators hockey crossover episode is going to hit it out of the park, my friends. Yeah.
That's got to be our highest rated one. I'm sticking with the music theme, Anne.
Okay.
My one word is a kind of a person. MC Scat Cat from the Paula Abdul Opposites Attract video. Have you ever seen that?
I have. Oh my
goodness. The giant cartoon cat. But what's the line in that video? 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. I don't know how the rest of it goes.
Wait, you should sing the rest of that. Can you do the rest of
the song? I only know the 2 steps forward and 2 steps back, which is why I came up with this one word, because it seemed like at points during this game, it was like that during the game. The Predators would have a big run, 2 steps forward. They would have all this great pressure, a lot of great chances, and then 2 steps back. They would have a period that was just marred with turnovers, penalties, bad giveaways, including just kind of like the rough play that led to the 2-1 goal for Seattle. It was a lot of that. It was a lot of moments, and I think you alluded to it earlier. It was like, the Preds won, but it's not exactly a win you can be happy with. There was a lot of, I think plays that you probably don't want to have when you're playing a critical game. And I'm sure the Preds are going to take this as a learning experience. But I mean, there had to be, obviously you're happy with 2 points in regulation, but at the same time, you got to be a little bit concerned with how they played and a lot of stuff to clean up. And MC Scat Cat would love the 2 steps back part here. We need to stick with Paula Abdul, who's very 2 steps forward, and eliminate MC Scat Cat. Nash should be the only cartoon cat in Nashville.
Oh, I
MC
love
Cat's
that.
gotta go.
See, we need to get like a Paula Abdul Garth Brooks duet with some Nash in the back. Like that's a hit right there waiting to
I
happen.
I feel like it, yeah. Him
Yeah.
and his little drum that he does
Yes.
during the games.
Yeah. So for people who may not have stayed up quite as late to watch the game, we can kind of talk through what happened and then Nick and I are going to break down what can we learn from this because really isn't every hockey game about learning your life lessons. The first period really was a period of too many penalties and trying to play too pretty. The scoring was opened by Seattle, Jared McCann on a power play goal, which Seattle does not have a great power play. So let that one kind of sink in and let's take some things from that. But it was scored on a 5-on-3. We
Mhm.
had Ekholm and Benning rifling around in the penalty box looking for Duchess cookies that weren't there. So that was a little bit of a problem. The Predators down 1-0. Luke Cunnin, thank goodness, answered back with less than a minute to go in the period, which was a nice change because the Predators sometimes have been on the other end of that late in the period goal scoring. But Luke Cunnin tied the game up 1-1 at the end of the first.
Yeah, how big was that goal, do you think, in terms of the game for the Predators just to kind of able
Mhm.
to level the field going into that intermission? Because Seattle certainly had the momentum, and it did feel like that Cunnin goal kind of got everybody back on
Mhm.
even ground, don't you think?
Absolutely. This game didn't quite feel like Seattle was controlling it in the first, but it certainly didn't feel like Nashville was in their groove. They were off by a beat and I think going into that intermission down 1-0 would not have been great for just the energy of the team. So I agree with you 100%. That Luke Cunnin goal was really the first time I felt like I could exhale during that game when they got the score evened up on that. So I agree with you. That was a great goal. The timing at the end of the period, I think, sort of interrupted things for Seattle, who could have carried some momentum over. So yeah, that was a key goal. I think not the prettiest goal. Let's talk about the
Yeah.
prettiest goal.
That
The
would
second,
be I was
yeah.
gonna bring this up. Where does Filip Forsberg rank on your goal of the year? So basically what happened is the Kraken
Oh,
went up 2-1
mm-hmm.
on kind of an ugly goal, a lot of bouncing around. Predators lost track of Adam Larson. But then Filip Forsberg, coast to coast, took over a puck behind the Predators net after kind of a botched dump in, and then just took it himself, sprinted down the right wing side, and then just wristed a shot over the shoulder of Philip Grubauer. Probably one Grubauer should have stopped, but Filip Forsberg just beating everybody off the puck.
Oh,
Coast to coast goal. That to me was where the Preds' energy came from. That to me is where you finally kind of stopped and said, you know what? They've got it. And let's talk about the Filip Forsberg aspect of that because that's what
mm-hmm.
good players do. When you're kind of in a hole and, the team's kind of not gelling, chemistry is not there for whatever reason, it takes a player like Filip Forsberg to kind of say, you know what? I'm just going to do it myself. And that's okay. Like, I'm going to go and just make a play by myself and get
Yes.
us on the board and get us back on level footing. That's what Forsberg did. And that's the type of player he is. He's the guy that's able to go out there and make something happen when the Predators absolutely cannot
Mhm.
get anything going.
Yeah. I literally am still kind of fanning myself after watching that goal because it was so beautiful. Like I felt weepy and all of that. But
Oh, emotional Philip
oh,
Forsberg goal.
it was well, and the look on his face, I wrote down in my game notes, I wrote, this is a he's had enough of this crap goal. Like he just the look on his face, he was like, all right, you know what? We're done.
Yeah.
And, 200 feet, 23 miles an hour, they clocked him going. And that shot just probably had some fire coming off the back end of that key goal. And again, I agree with what you say. That's part of what makes Filip Forsberg such an important player to this team. He's shooting that shot in the back of my mind. I just see the meme where somebody's just slapping dollar bills because he's earning his contract. He just puts the game on his back and says, okay, I've had enough of the shit. We're going to win this game now. And let me show you how we're going to do it. So really just a beautiful goal. And as far as goal of the year, it's got to be right up there. I mean, not just for style points, which we're going to talk about style points in a little bit, but just for the sheer importance of it, timing of it, and momentum shift, as well as, getting the game tied back up again.
You know the end credits scene from the second Avengers where it ends with Thanos putting on the gauntlet and he's like, fine, I'll do it myself. That to me was Forsberg in that moment.
Yes.
That is what I thought of. A lot more to talk about from this game, including Juuse Saros, maybe the game MVP yet again. Plus, goaltending was the big story of the game on both ends. So we'll certainly talk about that. First, though, let's mention our friends over at Built Bar. They don't put snacks in the sin bin, but they do put delicious protein bars out in grocery stores everywhere. If you don't know, Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. It tastes so good you'll actually want to eat it, unlike some of those other protein bars, which can be chalky, waxy, or taste like a chemical spill. Nope. Built Bar is covered in 100% real chocolate and so many flavors to choose from: coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie. In fact, there's a bunch of new Built Bar flavors that just popped up on their store. You can visit built.com to see what those are. Whatever you get, all Built Bar protein bars contain 130 grams of calories, about 4 grams of sugar, about 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. So you're eating healthy, even though you're eating something tasty. If you don't believe me, try it yourself. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKED15 gets you 15% off at built.com. And we have quite an interesting discussion coming up tomorrow on Locked On Predators. The trade deadline. It's coming up in a couple of months. We've seen the trade rumors already start to pop up, a couple of them surrounding the Nashville Predators. So, tomorrow we're going to get into a lively debate about how involved the Preds should be at the trade deadline. Who maybe should they get? Should they target somebody big? Should they maybe pick up spot pieces? Should they do nothing at all? Who are some of the players? This is going to be interesting, and I think especially for you and me, because we have some different opinions on this.
We do, and I tell you, this is the time in the hockey season where life begins to feel like 8th grade again. All the rumors circulating, who likes who wants to break up with who. So it's a very interesting time, and you and I are going to have what I think will probably be a very lively debate about what the Predators should or shouldn't do. So all that's coming up tomorrow. Of course, today we still got to finish this Seattle Kraken game. We got ourselves 2 good points. Filip Forsberg tied it up in the second. And then let's hear it for my Swedish brother, Mattias Ekholm. Let's hear it for the Swedes taking care of some business in this game, first of all. Mattias Ekholm had a really nice wraparound goal in the second period at 16:31 to finally give the Predators a little 3-2 lead there. And then we go into the third period. And the third period just was one of those periods where I'm like, for the love of God, please get another goal. Because a 1-goal lead didn't feel like it was going to cut it in this game.
Yeah, you know how you're talking about Filip Forsberg doing the dollar bills in the background? This was Juuse Saros doing dollar bills in the background, except this, instead of dollar bills, are Vezina ballots.
Yes.
Because this was the Juuse Saros period to me. And, kind of keeping our theme of goaltending, it was kind of a wacky tale of 2 different goaltenders, because you had Grubauer going in. Poor Philip Grubauer. I mean, what's happened to him this season, coming off a Vezina finalist last year? And then, he was kind of expected to be the guy in Seattle, like the first true franchise star. And boy, he's just played bad all season. And he had, I think they said 3 straight wins going into this game. They'd mentioned the big deal about the pads, but you kind of just saw from some of his goals. I mean, it's just like not good. Like, it's replacement level goaltending from a guy who's supposed to be a perennial Vezina finalist. And compare that to Juuse Saros, who without whom it very easily could have been 4-4, 5-4.
Yes.
In favor of Seattle in that last period. I mean, I think you see this game as a prime example of just how important great goaltending is, because Juuse Saros bailed out the Preds in this game.
Yeah, there were several times where it really was the Juuse Saros show. There were a couple of breakaways where he just was solid as could be in net. There was a couple times where he had just quick shot, no problem. I think we have to be careful not to underappreciate Juuse Saros, because it's very easy to get used to just how good he's playing and think, well, that's just average. It's not average, and his play is not average. And I agree with you about the Vezina votes, 100%. He really held things together in a third period that could have tied this game up very easily on several scary opportunities. Fortunately, we can count on our good friend Matthew Duchene to get finally stop trying to play so pretty. And I want to talk about that in a minute, but got really one of those gritty goals on a too many men on the ice power play opportunity for the Predators to make it 4-2 with about 4 minutes left in the game. So really a key goal to kind of give everybody a chance to breathe, and the Predators then held on to the win. But, there was a lot to take away from this game, some good, some not so great. One of my pet peeves about this game, Nick, is I feel like the Predators fell into that trap of trying to play too pretty instead of playing gritty. And I keep coming back to, you got to stick with what got you where you're going. And the Predators have really played a lot of gritty hockey, and they've been good at getting some of the, take out the trash goals, get some people in front of the net. The Matt Duchene was a rebound, just getting some of those goals that aren't so pretty. And at times I felt like Nashville was trying to be too pretty. One pass too many, one too pretty move. Just get the goals. There are no style points in hockey, which is evident on a number of levels. But just get some gritty goals. And that was something that I'd like to see the Predators just kind of get a little bit back to. They started out the game, I think, trying to play too pretty.
Yeah, I mean, what have we said when we talked about this before? Sometimes the best play is the simple one. Just throw it at the net. Like, just get the puck on net and see what happens. And you saw it later in the game. I mean, Matt Duchene, that goal, again, another one Grubauer probably should have had, but it was a good gritty goal. The Matthias Ekholm goal, you see what happens when you just throw it at the net. And I think that's kind of what we talked about during that 4-game slide, is sometimes the Preds look like they were maybe just overthinking things, maybe making the extra pass when they should have just shot it. Like maybe looking for, one extra play instead of just, kind of taking the simple route. And not only does that lead to fewer shots, but, if you do that otherwhere on the ice, you may botch like a break-in attempt. You may, kind of overthink a zone exit, and that leads to a really good chance for Seattle. We saw that a couple of times in this game where it was just, Preds, all they had to do was really dump and chase, and they wound up, making a turnover in the neutral zone or something like that, or couldn't get it past the defender, and then all of a sudden Seattle goes the other way for a great chance. So, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's one of those things where the Predators, if things are kind of going sloppy like we saw in the first period, the simple solution is just get pucks on net, and that's what the Preds started doing. And then I think that is why they wound up winning this game, is they kind of got back to their identity.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's what they're going to have to keep reminding themselves to come back to, is come back to that, you go home with the girl you took to the dance, like go back to the thing that made you good. Another concern I had real quick is how quiet the herd line was. And I feel like that's been something in a couple of these last games where, they're not making a lot of mistakes. They're not committing a lot of penalties, but they're just not quite as offensively productive maybe as what we're used to seeing. So that's something that I want to definitely keep an eye on as some of these games are coming up.
Yeah, not a lot of ice time for the Herd last night either. Only
Yeah.
about 14 minutes as a unit for a lot of them. Now, the Preds being shorthanded a bunch probably took the amount of 5-on-5 time that Tanner Jeannot and Yakov Trenin and Colton Sissons would have had together. So there's something to take into account. But yeah, I mean, they've been quiet the past couple of games. And I'm not sure if it's just teams have kind of maybe caught on a little bit.
Yeah.
They were on the ice for the Matthias Ekholm goal.
Yes, they were.
So they do get credit for that. But yeah, I mean, they've kind of, and I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this, maybe not the expected impact that we saw them from earlier in the season where they were just kind of taking over games. But on the other hand, I mean, you look and Mikael Granlund played a great game, 22 minutes of ice time for him. Ryan Johansson with 21 minutes of ice time. Matt Duchene, 20 minutes of ice time. So their big guns are actually stepping up and taking more of a bigger role. And, maybe that's a positive out of that.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't need that kind of big expectation on the Herd line if, your top 6 guys are able to go out and play as well as they did last night.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess for me, it's just that I am missing the Yakov Trenin jump into the glass goal thing. Maybe it's more of an emotional thing, but it just felt a little empty, I think, without them.
Yeah. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Well, the Preds have the Edmonton Oilers tomorrow. That's going to be an interesting matchup because the Oilers are not exactly a team on the rise at the moment. But yeah, we'll see. We also have Western Conference Wednesday coming up where we are going to take a look at some of the hot teams around the Western Conference. Who's rising, who's falling, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. But if you want to get a little inside scoop, stay tuned for our Western Conference Wednesday. It may lead you to decide you want to place a little wager. And if you decide that's something that you want to get involved in, you need to do it with our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline wants to wish you a happy betting new year, getting set for all of the betting action in 2022. It's a new year. They have a new updated desktop, and they also have a great mobile website where you can go and sign up today. And you'll receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. All you have to do to get that is use our promo code LOCKEDON to get started. BetOnline has wagers for football, basketball. Of course, they have hockey. They have boxing and UFC. They also have your favorite Vegas casino games. So don't wait to take advantage of all of the betting offers they have available in 2022. BetOnline is your fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Well, let's do some scouting from our friends in the Western Conference, shall we? Since the playoffs are starting to become a bigger role now at this stage of the NHL season, we're doing Western Conference Wednesdays where we will look at some of the teams on the rise, some of the teams and players falling, and a couple of teams we think might be due for a breakthrough this week. And would you like to start us off with a team on the rise?
I would, except I'm really sad that I have to say this team is on the rise. This is a team that I continually haul around in my invisible backpack of hockey grudges, and that would be the Dallas Stars. It's very hard for me. It's very hard for me to give kudos to this team, but I feel like I'm going to have to. The Dallas Stars are on a 4-game win streak. Joe Pavelski lightened it up last night. They're getting great goaltending from Holtby. This is a team that was easier for me to dismiss earlier in the season. That brought me great joy, but they're really starting to pick up some momentum. They've had some good wins against Florida. They had a great win against Pittsburgh. But every so often they throw a game where you're like, wait, are you for real? They lost to Montreal. And they did have a Central Division loss against the Blues. So But I really think this is a team, as much as I hate to say it, I think we're going to have to keep our eye on the Dallas Stars because I think they're really starting to find their groove and they may be making a push. They've got a ways to
Yeah.
go. They've got some points to make up, but this is a team I think is on the rise right now.
Yeah. In fact, I had them as a team, one of my teams to watch out for this week,
Yes.
because as you mentioned, like, I think a lot of people kind of got disenfranchised with the Stars because they kind of got off to a rough start. In fact, it
Yeah.
really was only about a month ago that we were saying, oh,
Mhm.
is Rick Bowness on the hot seat? It
Yes.
doesn't seem like there's a lot of good stuff going on in Dallas. But it's also coming at a key time for them because they're trying to keep John Klingberg, who
Yes.
apparently is not happy with the contract situation there. And so if the Stars can get on a run and get back in the playoff conversation, that's certainly going to be a big, I guess. I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the wonderful dog in the background
I'm
of this
so
picture.
sorry.
No,
That's Mojo.
we
Mojo
need
loves all things hockey.
we need to bring Mojo on for a segment.
If you saw a close up of Mojo's face, I think that you would maybe recant that because Mojo has what has to be the most terrific underbite you've ever seen in your whole life. It's
I
a
mean,
whole thing.
have you seen my face? It can't be any worse.
No, no, that's not true. You're delightful, Nicholas. You're
Well, thank you,
delightful.
Anne. Thank you. My team on the rise
Yes.
is the team that's everybody knows is on the rise.
Ugh,
The Colorado Avalanche, who may be the best team in hockey right now. And it was kind of only a matter of
agreed.
time. Wild stat, Anne. Since December 2nd, the Colorado Avalanche have only lost 3 times. Only one of those was in regulation, and that was the Predators game.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And
insane
the
to
Predators
go that
also,
long.
yeah, they also had one of the other 2 losses. So yeah, and then randomly the Ottawa Senators, which sure. I'm not sure how they
Okay.
got in, but no, I mean, Dallas, this is kind of one of those old coach Dennis Green things. Like they are who they thought they were. Uh,
Yes.
they are finally starting to show what kind of team they are. Everybody's back healthy. That was kind of the concern at the start of the year. Goaltending is kind of starting to become more consistent with Darcy Kemper kind of figuring things out a
Yes.
little bit. And that, I mean, Nathan McKinnon is, other than Alex Ovechkin, I would say maybe the league MVP this year, just for
Yes.
how insane he's played over the past 2 months when a lot of other people were out. I mean, this is a team that I don't want to see in the playoffs at all.
No, this is a scary team. And, I agree with what you said. They started out, and I thought, now on paper, this is not the team that I thought that they were. But now we're seeing what the Avalanche can do. And it is slightly terrifying. I don't disagree with you. Now, a team that is maybe not as terrifying, a team that I think is sliding, and I don't know why. There's the dog with the
Yeah.
underbite. I don't know why this surprises me, but it still surprises me. The Chicago Blackhawks, like,
Yeah.
I'm still back in my mind on all of their off-season work that they did, who they brought in, who they paid. But they're still sliding despite all the money that they're investing.
Yeah, and that's kind of a big surprise. I mean, look, say what you want about the Seth Jones contract. I know a lot of people have opinions on this. Um, but, we thought the Blackhawks were going to be players this year. I mean, obviously, you had Jonathan Toews coming back, Kirby Doc coming back, and then it was a team that kind of looked like they were going to rebuild. And then all of a sudden, the Blackhawks are like, you know what? We think we have enough pieces right now. We're going all in again. And a lot of those moves haven't paid off. Seth Jones is actually playing pretty good this year, but the problem is there's just no depth on the Blackhawks outside of Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah.
Marc-Andre Fleury hasn't had the same spark
Less.
that he's had in Vegas and Pittsburgh. He's probably going to be traded at the deadline. You have other guys like Tyler Johnson, who's been a big disappointment, and even Jonathan Toews. Like,
Yes.
a lot of people were like making a big deal about his comeback. He's played fine, but he hasn't done the same kind of level of impact as I think teams were expecting.
Yes.
Another sliding team, Anne, this is kind of a surprising one in my book, is the Calgary Flames.
What is happening in Calgary?
I don't know. Just a few weeks ago, we were kind of talking about them as a sneaky Stanley Cup Finals pick. Jacob Markstrom was having a Vezina type year, and now all of a sudden the wheels have kind of not completely fallen off, but are certainly wobbly. Maybe need a few lug nuts tightened.
Yes.
They've lost 4 of their last, or I'm sorry, they've only won 4 of their last 10. They've fallen to 4th in the standings. And yeah, I mean, they have a lot of games left to make up.
Yes.
Just because of how the COVID situation has played out in Canada. So there's certainly a lot of room for them to make a run, but they just haven't been playing very well over the past couple of weeks. And I'm surprised by that because Calgary has a lot of great players stat-wise this year, but it just hasn't come together over the past couple of weeks. And that's a slight concern if you're a Flames fan.
Yes, no, the Calgary Flames are the team where I just can't quite figure them out because I'm with you. Several weeks ago, I thought, okay, this is a team that we all need to keep our eye on. And yet, every so often, they just kind of stumble a bit. So, not really sure what to make of the Flames. Now, we're going to talk about teams to keep your eye on. And this one also pains me. But I tuned in to the Montreal Canadiens game to see my boy Rem Pitlick when they were playing the Minnesota Wild.
Mm-hmm.
And friends, the Wild won that 8-2. Now, sidebar, Rem Pitlick had a goal, so take a moment.
Yeah.
But back to the Minnesota Wild. This team, we need to keep our eye on this team. This team is on fire. They are just chugging along nicely. They're solid. They're not super streaky. They're just really, really good, I think. So everybody keep your eye on the Minnesota Wild because where they end up in the Central is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, they kind of turned things around because a couple of weeks ago, they were a team that was sliding.
Yeah.
I think they finally found their footing a little bit. And yeah, I mean, that's a very dangerous team. Kirill Kaprizov is going to be one of the best players in the NHL, if he's not considered that already. So Wild, I agree, somebody to keep an eye on. Another team to keep an eye on, especially this week, Anne, the Los Angeles Kings. They are firmly in the playoff discussion, despite a lot of people thinking they were going to be rebuilding for years. And, all of a sudden they've gotten, it feels like 2015 again, because Jonathan Quick is having a tremendous season. He might be in the Vezina conversation when it's all said and done. Drew Doughty, who, was considered maybe one of the worst contracts in hockey just last year, is now all of a sudden finding his form. And they're getting a timely scoring from a lot of young players. And then you look at them this week. I mean, right now they are 1 point behind Anaheim for second in the Pacific. But look at who they have this week. The Islanders, who are bad this year. The Flyers, who are a dumpster fire. And then a afternoon game on Sunday against Pittsburgh, who's good, but, certainly the way
beatable.
Playing that's beatable. So the Kings can get a lot more points here. And then not to mention they have Detroit next week, who's kind of on a bit of a slide. So the Kings have an opportunity to make up a lot of ground and maybe cement their place as one of the top 2 teams in the Pacific Division.
Yep. Well, you know what? If somebody is going to be at the top in the Pacific, let it be our good friend Victor Arvidsson and the Kings. But yeah, totally a surprise team. And I agree with you, one to keep our eye on this week for sure.
Anybody but the Ducks and Golden Knights.
Word and amen, my friend. Word and amen.
For sure. Well, tomorrow is going to be an interesting chat with the trade deadline looming. We're starting to see some more rumors, couple involving the Preds. So we are going to be talking about what we think the Preds should do at the deadline. Should they be all-out buyers? Should they kind of do what they did the past couple of years and just kind of wait and cherry pick? Lot of different opinions on this. We will get to those tomorrow, plus preview of the Predators versus Oilers game. In the meantime, Ann, where can the people find your work online?
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com, and you can find me on Twitter at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com as well. Follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. Also, be sure to follow the show on Twitter at LO_Predators. Let us know if there's ever a topic you want to discuss or if you have thoughts on our news of the day. That's going to do it for us here at Locked On Predators. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'll see you tomorrow for some trade deadline talk and a preview of Preds versus Oilers.